welcome back to my channel. I'm the City Witch. So today's video I'm going to be talking to you about the Book of Shadows and bullet journals, and what I'd like to do during this video is talk to you about the different ideas and concepts behind keeping them. So my students ask me many different questions surrounding the Book of Shadows, but the main ones I get asked is, what does a Book of Shadows do? What does it need to contain? What should it look like? And these are very valid, important questions. But the easy answer is, guys, they can look and contain and be whatever you need them to be for your craft. And the reason that is the right answer is because your craft is so unique to you, your path is so unique to you as the witch, that your Book of Shadows is going to reflect that. And no one should really tell you what your Book of Shadows should or should not contain. It's completely up to you. It's your magical diary, so you can document whatever you feel you need to within it, and you can have it however you want. And to be honest with you guys, my Book of Shadows has gone through a number of changes over the years, and obviously the one I have now isn't the original Book of Shadows I started with. I've been a witch now for 28 years, which is, a very long time, and I've had a number of Book of Shadows since that time. My Book of Shadows started off as a sparkly purple notebook, and I was 10 years old, and a lot of information I put within that wasn't magical, and a lot of it was mundane stuff, how I was feeling, what I was thinking, sometimes what even I'd had for tea that night, how my sister annoyed me because I shared a room with her, surgeries I was going through at that age, boys I perhaps fancied, and it kind of developed from there. So there was a lot of mundane, random stuff in it, and there was a lot of really important magical stuff in it as well. So it did display a lot of my growth and development as a witch. But as I got older and more experienced in the craft, I started to refine what I wanted my Book of Shadows to become. And over time, I saw this transformation. So I went from this sparkly purple kid's notebook to these very professional leather-bound books that had embellishments on them of pentagrams, pentacles, triquetras. And in those pages of those books would contain my spells, my recipes, my magical thoughts, dreams, any communications between magical beings or entities or angels or deities that I'd been working with at that time. I put all my rituals in there, my espats, my sabbats. I put all my workings with my coven at that point as well. And any information that I wanted to write down, even if it was just a side thought or something I'd experienced that day or something odd that I felt like I wanted to take note of, everything went into it, but it was all magical only. I never put any mundane stuff in it. And over time, I realised that I'd gone from putting, initially when I was 10 years old, in my, kiddie kind of version of my Book of Shadows, not enough magical stuff to way too much. So I kind of settled somewhere in the middle in the end, and I saw this development between my Book of Shadows of what it was to what it become and what I wanted it to be. And the advice I have for you guys is the Book of Shadows I have now, the beauty of it, how I've developed it and what it's become is because I have a bullet journal. So bullet journals are really handy items. They are notebooks where you can store information and you can write challenges and stuff in that you want to work on over the course of, say, a month. It's where you can put your recipes, your thoughts, your dreams in, and you can doodle and you can, scribble and make a mess if you want to, but you're not damaging your main Book of Shadows. And when you have perfected a thought or a recipe or a spell, you can then feel free to add that in your Book of Shadows by creating a special page for it. And that's what I tend to use my bullet journal for. So I suppose the first bits of information I have for you. So the first tip is definitely don't worry about your Book of Shadows so much. It can be wherever you need it to be, but just bear in mind that it's going to develop and change alongside you, just as mine has from when I was a child to what it has become now. And then my second tip is definitely to start a bullet journal. So this is my bullet journal, and my bullet journal, as I said, contains all my recipes, my thoughts, my magical workings and doodles, sigils that I've been working on, and often spells and customizable information in it that I'm going to use for a client maybe, or a spell that I know I've noticed there's a gap in my Book of Shadows and I don't have a spell for a specific purpose, so then I start to create one. So all of that kind of goes in here, and this is quite literally just a notebook. I mean, it's a Harry Potter one at the moment, and I have a number of these around my house. So this one in particular is the one I use personally when I'm developing a spell. I have one for working with clients. I have one next to the sofa that's for my YouTube videos, so whenever I come across a thought or I have a magical notion that I want to do a certain video, it goes in that. I have one next to my bed so that at night, if I'm playing around on my phone or something comes up on the various news feeds and blogs that I follow of interest, I kind of go, oh, I like that, and I might write it down, or I might screenshot it on my phone and make some notes or develop it into a spell. Sometimes it's not even spells that goes into this, it's just little mantras or little thoughts I have, or sometimes it's focuses that I'm working on. So I might say to myself, this month I really want to work with the moon, so I'm going to do lots of moon magic, and I'm going to develop myself some moon spells or make some moon water or moon salt. So it just purely depends on what I'm working on, how I'm feeling, and I put it all into this so I don't ruin my main book of shadows. So that's what a bullet journal is, guys, and every witch uses them differently, but mine, to be honest, is just a scrapbook of information that I'm working on. I do sometimes give myself challenges and tests, so I'll say to myself, this month I will work on a certain something. So at the moment, for my birthday, I had a number of new oracle decks bought for me, so I'm currently, drawing a card every morning, concentrating on the card, saying, I think it means this, and then looking it up and seeing if I'm right. So I'm doing that. I'm also contemplating its meaning, meditating on its purpose, so I'm working a lot on those oracle decks right now, so that's my focus. But it can be, again, whatever you want it to be, but your bullet journal, again, is basically just a notebook of magical knowledge and information that you can just scribble in. So I do recommend that you have one of those. The next piece of advice I have for you guys out there is to make yourself a sigil book. Now, this isn't something that many witches talk about, but it's super valuable, guys, honestly. So I came across this idea many years ago where a friend of mine had designed magical tattoos, and what she did was she drew them into a special book that she kept them all in, and then she sold them to magical practitioners, and she uniquely designed them for her clients as well. And I thought I could do that, but with my sigils. And I really love sigil magic. It's one of my all-time favourite types of magic. I use it an awful lot to layer my magic as well. So I thought this was a brilliant idea, and you're probably going to laugh because it's another Harry Potter themed notebook. I am a Harry Potter fan, so sorry guys, but my partner bought me this one, and it was too nice to just have as a bullet journal or as a scrapbook, so I wanted it to become something that I'm going to appreciate and use and, kind of love over time. So I thought it's perfect for my sigil book. So what I did to create this sigil book was I sat down with pen and paper and I wrote down words that I knew that I'd want to create a sigil of, or statements. So, a statement might be, I am loved, or my heart is protected from negative people, or I attract the right relationships. There might be a number of different statements, but then there was also singular words like love, commitment, desire, passion, sexual energy, contentment. And I wrote down a number of those words and decided which ones I liked, which ones I definitely would want a sigil from, and I grouped them all as well. So all the love ones would be together, the ones for prosperity and money would be together, the ones for wisdom and knowledge would be together, communication, ones for protection would be together, and I kind of grouped them all like that and designed as many sigils using as many methods as I can find for that one word or statement. And then that gave me quite a number of different sigils, and then what I did was I sat down with them in front of me and stared at them and picked the ones that I fell in love with, the ones I was really drawn to, and then I put them into this. And I'll show you a couple of pages from this so you get an idea of what I did. So this is what it looked like. So these are all the sigils for the word focus that I liked, so I kept them. And then I kept a page here blank, and what I plan to do over time for this page is I'm going to draw my creative sigils on this one, my occult ones, and again that's a completely different method to what I've done here. So this is kind of a half done book, I've not completely finished it, I'm going to build on it over time. So as I say, this was using all different methods, these are all different sigil designs using different methods, and then over here I'll put all my creative ones there. And again, I used lots of different words. So again, here's commitment there. So there was a number of different sigils that I designed. There's beauty, and and they're all unique, they're all different, they're all really pretty. If you're interested in learning how I did this, guys, I have a sigil video where I show you how I make all of these. And then at the back, what I liked about this book is it had this pouch, and then in this pouch I could put sigils like that, for example. So that's one for separation that I used for a client. I have one here using the occult style. This is for a friend who wanted protection during surgery. So, you know, again, all different styles of sigils, but I also have my different methods of design sigils in here as well. So if I look in this book and I don't have a sigil that I need, I can flip to the back, pull out my charts and make one. So the reason that this is valuable, guys, is if you enjoy sigils like I do, and there's certain spells that you do magic for on a regular basis, rather than keep designing a sigil over and over for the same purpose, I wanted a place where I could store them and refer to them time and time again. So that's why I designed this. So if you haven't got one of these, I would definitely recommend making yourself a sigil book, guys. And actually you could feel free to copy or draw up other people's sigils in your book as well. If you see something for, say, communication and you love that sigil, why not incorporate it in your book and keep it? There's no reason we can't share knowledge. That's part of the point of being a witch, that we share and develop each other. So feel free to screenshot any of the stuff that you saw in this that I had up on the screen then. I don't mind, guys. And if you'd like to know how I made them, look at my sigil video. That teaches you all the different methods that I know of. There are more out there, but they're the ones I like to use and I incorporate in my personal craft. So that'll teach you how I did them. So yeah, sigil book, guys. Now, I'm getting to the point now where I'm going to talk to you about my personal book of shadows. Now, the advice I have when it comes to your book of shadows, as I say, it's going to be unique and personal to your particular path. And as I say, I went from a childlike book of shadows to a very professional one, and then ended up somewhere in the middle. Now, I don't include mundane everyday stuff in my book of shadows, and I certainly don't write in it like it's a journal. I actually don't keep a journal or a diary at all anymore. What I have is a diary for my business. And I have a logbook where I write down all my clients and the information that they've given me, and I make notes of what happened in the spell and kind of report on myself what I did, so that if I ever need to refer back, I can. But my main book of shadows are my spells and my incantations and all of my knowledge. This is the collective knowledge of my 28 years of experience, guys. And I have 2 books of shadows here. Now, the reason I have 2 is because, well, one, 28 years of experience isn't going to fit in one book, and the second reason is because I like to divide up my craft. So if you ever saw my craft room, it's not particularly big in my current house, but my next room is going to be quite big actually. But my room is pretty divided up. So I have my main altar where my spells go, and I have a separate space in my library where I do a lot of my healing work, and that has a separate altar in there. How my magic is divided up, my main quite serious ritualistic spells are done in my main craft room, and all the healing and positive light spells for love and stuff tend to be done in my healing room. And all of my tools are divided as well. So, you know, if I wanted to work a spell for protection, for example, or curse breaking, there's a certain wand for that, there's a certain atham for that, there's, you know, certain pair of scissors, there's, you know, certain candles, there's certain colours and ribbons and oils, and all of that is separate to the ones that I would use for love or prosperity. And the reason I do that is because I like those energies to be separate. I don't like to use the same atham that I've used to break a curse to then go and use that atham for love. I don't think that works for me. I like those energies to be separate. So for the same reason, I separated my book of shadows. So I have one book of shadows, which is called my Book of Light, and contained within its pages are all my spells and recipes and ingredients and my collective knowledge for positive magic. So by positive magic, I mean things like blessings, naming ceremonies, hand fastenings, I mean love work, prosperity, luck, aura cleansing, astral projection, travel magic, charms, sleep work, moon magic, working with my animals and my guides and totems, and lots of information as well that I utilise in actually designing my spells. So at the beginning of the book I have stuff like the kind of energies that you want to incorporate when you're using colours, the days of the week, the moon phases. I have a lot of information on how to read wax in a divination, how to read the smoke from a candle or the flame when you've done a spell, how to charge and embellish your candles, because I do a lot of candle magic. There's a lot in the book of information that I've gathered over the years, which are cutouts and printouts as well. So when I show you this book, guys, all of the information in it that you see is handwritten by myself. That is my information, my knowledge, and my incantations. So I made and designed those myself. I didn't get them or find them anywhere, I made them. And then all the information that you see that's stuck in is stuff I've gathered from Pinterest or, you know, on the internet, or that I've seen on blogs that I've thought, oh, that's brilliant. So, you know, I've kept it because my Book of Shadows, I've designed it in such a way that I'll be able to pass it down to the next generation. So I wanted to incorporate as much information as possible for that reason. So one of the tips that I gave you was design your book of shadows for you and your purpose and your craft. So that means filling it with the information that you're likely to use. Now, my book of shadows isn't done like that, and I know this is very contradictory to what I said to you, but I've designed my book of shadows to just contain information that you will be able to take and use and design a spell around. So I give you the information, I give you the incantation, but I don't tell you how to do it. How you do it is up to you, because every path is unique and every witch's path is unique to them, and how they like to do a spell is very unique to them as well. So if you put 10 witches in the room and gave them one incantation, they will all design a completely different spell. So you'd end up with 10 spells that do the same thing, and that's because every witch is different. I myself work an awful lot with candle magic, fire magic, and with green witchery. I love using herbs and flowers in my craft. That's very personal to me and my craft. But if you spoke to another friend of mine, she uses an awful lot of wax and clays in her magic, and nails and thorns, and she likes to use a lot of smoke and mirrors and things in her magic. So again, it's completely different to my magic, and it's not that I don't incorporate those things, it's that that's not my main focus in my craft. If you spoke to a different witch, you know, maybe a nature witch, they might go outside for their crafts. They might utilise trees and fields and mountains and, you know, beaches and rivers and oceans in their craft, rather than be inside at an altar. So everybody is completely different, and how they would do a spell is different for that reason. So my book of shadows, as I say, I've designed it to be a certain way so that when I pass it down to the next generation, they're not going to look at it and go, I don't like that, I would never do a spell like that. Instead, I want them to look at it and go, I know exactly what I'd do with that incantation, and I'm going to use that crystal, that herb, and that oil that's recommended. And, you know, they can go away then and do the spell however they feel is right for them. If you ever follow my Instagram, guys, when you look at my spells, you'll often see, you know, say a banishment spell, and there'll be 4 or 5 versions of it, and they'll all look completely different. And that's based on how I've customised each and every spell based on the client and their needs. So sometimes I get people emailing me and going with screenshots of my own work going, oh, you said all of these are a banishment spell. Why do they all look different? And often I'll say because I'm banishing different things. So sometimes I'm banishing an energy, sometimes I'm banishing a person, sometimes I'm banishing an entity. So they're never going to look the same. And based on the client and their needs and what the purpose of the spell is, I can customise that, which is why I only give the information you need to be able to do the spell and the incantation, and then everything else around that and how you design and how the spell looks is completely, you know, your personal preference. So I'm about to show you my book of shadows now, and as I say, I have 2 versions of this. I have a light version and I have what I refer to as my dark book of shadows. As mentioned before, I like to split my book of shadows into 2, the same as all my tools. So the first one I'm going to show you is my light book of shadows. Now this is very personal, guys, and I would just like to ask you all to be very respectful. I don't show anyone my book of shadows, not even my students. I have a separate book with separate stuff in for them that they can feel free to go through, but the one I'm about to show you now is the one I personally developed over my 28 years of experience. This has a lot of knowledge and wisdom inside it. It's very precious to me. I mean, if my house was on fire, this is the thing I would save because it's literally my entire life in a book. So I am going to show you some pages from it. And as I said before, the way I've done my spells, when you see them, is you'll see an incantation. Sometimes you'll see one incantation on page because it's quite a big incantation. Sometimes you'll see multiple little ones on page. And then surrounding that, there's embellishments. And the way that I've decorated my pages is I like to scrapbook them. So there's a very scrapbook theme to my pages. So you'll find that there'll be flowers and stars and hearts and moons and things stuck on them. There's loads of pictures from Pinterest stuck in my book as well to decorate the pages and make them look pretty. I am a quite colourful, creative person, so I didn't want my pages to look boring. My original books of shadows were just, you know, black writing on brown or white parchment, and you know, maybe the odd, you know, slight colour from a pencil, that was it. But this book of shadows is colourful. Each page is designed with the colour that matches the spell in mind, so that it's giving you clues as to the type of spell it is and what kind of colours you should be using. And as I say, all of the embellishments and the information surrounding that incantation or on the next page to that gives you ways to make the spell or to design the spell, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. So I hope you like it, guys, and as I say, please be respectful and delicate. This is quite precious to me, and I hope you like it. So this is my book of shadows. It's quite a beast. He's very heavy. This was designed by a guy on Etsy. If I find his information, I will link him below if you're interested in buying one. This cost about £60 to buy and then another £30 to ship, I believe. It came with loads of pages inside it. However, I took many of them out and designed my own. As you see, this is quite big. It's very heavy as well, so I apologise if I drop it or, you know, pop it down a little bit because it's heavy. You can see there's lots of embellishments and things sticking out of it, and at the bottom here we have 3 ribbons. I tend to use the ribbons to mark out my best used spells, the ones I refer to quite a lot when I'm working with my clients. On the front is the triquetra. It's one of the symbols that I worked with a lot in my youth, so it's something I felt I wanted to incorporate in my future. As you see, the Book of Shadows is quite well used. It's gotten worn now around the edges. This is real leather, and no guys, it's not been, you know, no animal's been harmed or anything in the making of this. It was all fair trade and, you know, safely done with, you know, no one being murdered or anything. And the way he's done the inner cover of this is he's marbled it, which is quite nice. And as I have mentioned before in previous videos, my Book of Shadows has these screws in it, so you can take the pages in and out, so you can actually modify this over time. So sometimes I love a page when I put it in there, but as I've grown older in my craft, I've took a page out because later down the line I've got, I don't like that, and then I've changed it. So yeah, and then as I perfect my magic as well, spells go in it but then they come out because they're not right anymore, or I don't like them, or I've created a better one. So that's why I like this, and I like that I can take pages in and out, because the next generation will be able to do that as well, whoever I should pass this down to. So that's the initial first page, and then I'm going to try and hold this up to you. So this is my cover page, so as I say, just a regular Book of Shadows page, and then when you turn it over, so there we go. So I have kind of a glossary, and my glossary isn't the same as everyone else's. It's not a list of what's contained within my Book of Shadows. It's a glossary of information that I utilise at the beginning of every spell. So this tells me whether, you know, do I want to make my spell talisman, an amulet, a charm, an incantation. And it gives me all the information on the different types, so I can break that down, and information on sigils. Then I have information on colours, so what kind of colour do I want to incorporate in that spell. There we go. And then here I have the days of the week, so this tells you the energies and the types of spells that you should cast on that day of the week. And then I start going into candle magic. Now I do a lot of candle magic, so I have a lot of information on candle magic, and I start to talk about the divination of it. So I talk to you about the wax and the flame and the smoke produced by a candle, and then I show you here how to do a wax divination. And then on this page here, this is ruins and how to make a sigil. So even though I have this in here, I also have it in my sigil book. So depending on which book I'm working with, depends on, you know, what I'm making. And then I have a list of magical alphabets there I can incorporate as well. And then I also have a list of bind ruins. So as I said before, anything that's stuck in like this is printed off the internet, and anything handwritten is stuff that I made myself. So this is all printed information. So I am going to show you some stuff in this book, as I say, that I've done, but I'm not going to show you everything, because as I say, this is, you know, quite personal, guys. So one of the things I will show you, so let's see, so this one, so this is the start of my moon magic section, and that was the end of my shamanism section on the other page. Here's one of my drawings on the moon spells, and see I used a very sparkly page for that. And I like to stick mantras and things that I found in the internet in here. So this one says, for example, the day I broke up with normal is the first day of my magical life. I think that's really nice. So I love things like that to be included to, you know, kind of make my book unique and special and pretty, and also to pass down knowledge and information and wisdom to the next generation. So let's have a look what else I've got here. So this is a perfect example of what I mean when I say that I provide you all the information but don't give you a way to do it. So on this page here, you've got the plants, the herbs, and I talk a lot about lavender and the flowers. So this is all stuff I recommend for working with sleep and insomnia. And then over here, you've got 2 incantations that you can use. So you can use this information to choose items you want to use in the spell, and then this is the actual spell. And then how you would cast that is completely up to you. So I have pages on angels, so like that. And then I'll show you one more, guys. Just say it's very personal, so I don't want to show you too much. And then this is my garden pages. So I love this. This is some of my favourite work on here. So say this one here, handwritten, is mine. I designed it. And then this little one here is one I printed off of Pinterest. And then I've embellished the page with flowers and fairies and all stuff that to me represents earth magic. I'll show you one more. There we go. So there's a kitchen witchery list. So this is like a list of herbs and what they could be used for. So it covers courage, love, luck, peace, protection, success, travel, wisdom, money, health, insight, happiness and fertility. And it gives you a list of the different ingredients that you can use there, and I refer to that actually a lot more than I thought I would, guys, to be honest. So as I say, this one is my positive book shadows, and that's how I've chosen to lay it out. So I hope I've given you some ideas there, and yeah, and I'll show you my other one. So my next book of shadows, as I say, is the one I refer to as my book of shadows, and the green one is my book of light. And this one contains my more protective spells. So this is as thick as the other one, but it actually has, you know, as you can see, it's a work in progress. It has a lot of space in it still, and I haven't finished it. As I say, it took me a long time to work on my green one, so now I'm working on this one, so the pages are still, you know, in development. So I'm not going to show you everything in this one, because again, this one's again very personal, but I'm going to show you some pages so you get an idea of what I've done in this. So in this one I quite like to use these black pages, and I glittered them, so I hope you can see that. And then the information I put in it varied quite a bit. So this one contains spells for defense, protection, potions and tinctures. It has stuff in it about personal cleansing, whether that's your aura or your physical person and your home. It has a lot of information in it about protecting yourself from entities, demons, negative forces, poltergeists. And that ranges from protecting your home, your pets, your children, to you and your energy and your power. I also have meditations in here to work with the shadow aspect of yourself and working through your shadowy entities, and that's a whole different subject, guys, but I'll talk to you about that in a different video. I also have a lot of stuff in here for justice magic, truth magic, just desserts, spells for breaking, hexes, curses, crossings. I don't have any curses in here, guys. I don't tend to do cursing magic. I think there's lots of other types of spells that you can do that don't involve cursing someone, that still teach them the same lessons that they need to learn. So a lot of my spells in here are more based around that. I do have spells in here for exorcisms on, you know, animals, kids and adults. I have spells for exorcising houses as well from various different entities, and healing wounds and scars as well. I have spells in here for discovery, so divination purposes. I have poppet magic in here, and actually I'll show you that 'cause it's quite a nice page. So there you go, so that's my poppet magic pages, and they go on for quite a number of pages actually. I have some work in here as well to do with demons and information on Demoltia energy. And the reason that I have that is because some of the work that I do, guys, involves me going to other people's houses and, as I say, removing dark forces, working with getting rid of entities and helping people that are, you know, feel like the curse, but it's not a curse, it's actually a thing working against them. So I work a lot in that field, so I need to understand those forces. So I did a lot of research into it, and I became, I suppose you could say, a demonologist for a while, and I incorporated that into this, the things that I felt I needed. And then there's stuff in here to do with the witch's bottle. There's stuff in here to do with how to use pins, needles and thorns in magic. There's also a lot of work on using DNA in this and blood magic. So this is where I'll keep that information, guys. So as I say, two different book shadows that do completely different things, but that's because I like it that way and it works well for my craft and my purposes. But the advice I have for any witches out there watching this video is this. Try a bullet journal, because it's a great way to make a mess without ruining your main book of shadows. Your main book of shadows can contain any and all information that you feel is useful to you and your path. It can look and be anything you want it to be, and if you want it to be a diary as well as a book of shadows, then, you know, by all means. I did that in my initial years of study, so if that's the way you want it to be, that's fine. I would recommend putting as much information as possible onto your spells that make them unique to you. So as I say, I've designed my spells for the next generation, but when I first got to my book of shadows and designed my pages, it was for me. So information contained on those pages was things like the moon phase that I recommend casting that spell in, the day of the week that matched, colours that matched, crystals, herbs, oils, various incantations that you can use. And sometimes I actually did write out the spell in a step-by-step of what that spell should be laid out like, because that was the best way to do it. So over time I changed because that suited me and my path. But if that doesn't suit you and you prefer having all your spells laid out with all the information, then do that, guys. The other thing I'd say to you as well, these days you don't actually have to have a physical book of shadows. There are many witches out there that are very techy and, you know, nerdy. So if you feel it's better to have a digital book of shadows, I've got to be honest, these days your phone could be your book of shadows. So I do have a book of shadows on Pinterest, and any information that I see on there that I like, I pin and keep. And I've incorporated a lot of information from that into my book of shadows that I printed off and stuck in as well. Also, there's lots of blogs and apps out there that you can join that help you develop your craft and help you be a part of that. So I would definitely recommend looking into those. There are also websites that you can go on as well that have lots of information. So your phone can be your book of shadows. The internet and your computer could be your book of shadows, or you can have a physical book if you like. You could even have recordings of your book shadows instead, so you could voice record or do videos of yourself doing your spells and then have them as recordings of your spells instead. So think outside the box and you do what works for you, guys. Now, I love the way I've done my book of shadows, and I love the way they're scrappy and colourful. That suits me and my craft perfectly. But if you don't want to decorate or put any embellishments in your book, then that's fine, guys. But I hope you liked what I've showed you today, and I hope I've given you some ideas. And if you enjoyed the video, as always, give me that thumbs up. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, then click the bell button. And if you would like to support me on any of my social media, then all the links are in the description below. I am on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Patreon, and if you do choose to support me on Patreon, thank you very much, guys. I do appreciate it. And if you'd like to ask me any questions about anything you've seen in this video or about my book of shadows, then drop me a comment below and I will answer as soon as I can. So thank you very much, guys, and I'll speak to you very soon. Be kind to each other. Blessed be.